Hello. Hello, everybody out there. It's Selfless Self coming to you under different kinds of circumstances. Seemingly, maybe the title was alarming, or that might have given the impression that I'm, in a bad place, I guess, DE, but no. I don't usually do things like this. I haven't done a lot of them. And I've been out of sight for a little while because, my case kind of forces that in some ways. Um, but there have been so many public statements of such a harmful, malicious, and destructive manner that I didn't think that I could very much longer sit on my hands without comment. I thought today that it would be irresponsible to continue to not say anything. I was kind of waiting for my turn. And maybe some of you have surmised what I'm here to talk about. This is the recent and, for me, pretty long-standing, very poor behavior by the founder of the SPTV Foundation. And his manipulation of people through the use of his bully pulpit, his large platform, his membership, and, of course, people's natural deference to authority and to what looks like success. So, I wanted to kind of provide some background for this first. When I first got into this, my days were pretty well filled with his and other people's content. And I mean, while we may have had some disagreements early on, I still saw his contribution as a net positive. Certainly, he wasn't a primary inspiration for me hitting the street. That was more Serge and Laura and Pearl Snappy and Liz and others. The presentation of the scroll was certainly one thing that he was around for, that I thought was a great protest move, and still think that can go much, much further. It's a powerful symbol. But for all of that, and for all his directing of people to different channels and protesters, when I hit the street in Chicago for the first day, unlike a lot of other protests that I've done, which I've for decades, since I was a kid, I was hitting the street for different social causes. And I became aware exactly how exposed we all were as protesters. We didn't have, the numbers of like a large protest group, and so there's safety in that, especially when you're dealing with the police and they're acting in an untoward and extra legal manner. And it didn't seem like there was any real organization to catch people when they fell, and it was basically left up to the audience to do that. And the idea was you had to be deft, popular, I don't know, attractive on YouTube or social media enough to be able to get any kind of a defense that way. And so just to survive on the street, that was made pretty clear. And it's something Aaron reiterated today. And as just how it is, how he sees it. And for me, immediately, it was like, this cannot possibly grow under these circumstances. You can't possibly get anybody but like the kind of most diehard believers in the cause who will throw themselves, out on the street, risking their livelihood and their future and their relationships if, you know, they're fair gamed by Scientology. And the fact somebody mentioned on this live that, you know, maybe we didn't know what fair gaming was. Everybody that I met on the street protesting knew exactly what they were facing, knew exactly the danger, and did it anyway, out of belief in the cause, out of altruism, out of self-sacrifice. And so I became aware, oh wow, this is kind of wild out here. You really have to have your wits about you, because if this stuff goes down, it's all on you and there's nobody coming for you. And I mean, there was more solidarity in the chat and between individual members, and it became clear that, oh yeah, okay, so for some of us that those catches could happen. But for some cases, and as they become more and more complex, that bare minimum is certainly not enough. And I think that's part of what Aaron's grousing about is, you know, maybe too much attention on, you know, court cases that he either isn't aligned with the people that are having legal action brought against them, or they were critical of him, or whatever. And in that they're not deserving of even mention, let alone any kind of support, let alone any financial support, which we didn't ask for. I mean, especially here in Austin, we covered our expenses without even the hope of the whisper of a mere mention from these people. We knew what we were facing. We knew that they weren't going to come to our aid in any way, shape, or form. And so we immediately got busy in covering this. So yeah. So I, you know, early on, I'm asking myself, like, why is somebody in a position like Aaron, who has resources and this platform and name and face recognition and all of this stuff covering him, why is he so concerned with these small ball things? And it really didn't jive with my experience with people doing philanthropic work, doing charity work, ministering to those in trouble, like, I don't know, psychologically, or along a number of different lines, from medical condition or anything. It didn't seem to me like he was presenting what I knew to be the outward signs of somebody that's really dedicated to a social cause. Since I had lived my whole life surrounded by people that had dedicated their entire lives to making the world better for people, to, you know, building, well, I'll get into that. But yeah, as things progressed, it just seemed, I mean, there was a time Aaron did come back and kind of, he really more embraced the protesters. And it seemed to be directly preceding and leading up to and directly after the announcement of the SPTV Foundation. And I think a lot of us that may have had questions about what he had done in previously were like, okay, well, this looks like something of some promise. Let's see what occurs from this. Like, there's some questionable, I think, to me, placement of board members off the bat. But it gave me some amount of hope that he was willing to have Serge on the board, who I believed would, you know, be a voice of reason when push came to shove. And seemingly he was that voice of reason, and he got kind of shoved. So, and did the right thing. Did the right thing by alerting us all to what he saw, what his experiences were inside the board, so that we can have a better understanding of what it was that maybe we were previously supporting, and what people still think that they may be, you know, having that idea somewhat reformed and brought into accord with, I don't know, more a variety of points of view rather than just Aaron or other board members. But that was like a brief period of time, and then just anybody kind of with a little bit of criticism of this new project, it was immediate shunning. And it wasn't like, people doing direct attacks, asking questions. What is this? What is that? Why does this not function? What can we expect out of this? And treated pretty roughly, and kind of the whole time. It seemingly that conversation for much of the time of the existence of the SPTV Foundation could not be countenanced. And again, for any kind of organization like that, if you can't answer to these things in a clear way, if you're going around like knocking down every person that raises a question, it does not speak to strength. It doesn't it doesn't speak to the health of an organization. It speaks to somebody that's more interested in their personal image than it is like the foundational tenets of what it is that they're supposedly fighting for. To me, and as far as I can tell, there are a lot of examples of the founder of the SPTV Foundation, Aaron, of just being irresponsible as some kind of head of this kind of organization in the way that I know that just a couple of these episodes for the organizations that I worked for, you'd be booted. Like, you're risking the fundraising, you're risking like what the board wants to do by, some loose talk. You're out of there. So I was somewhat chagrined right off the bat to hear about like his public announcement of his political affiliation based on the Democratic Party in his district. What was it? They had pledged to run a person of color in their district that cycle. And he saw that, I think his statement was that he said that was racist, and said that he was going Republican from that point on. And I mean, to me, it just shows a profound ignorance of political matters in general, and of the difference between something that's racial and racist. I think he's got the wrong end of that stick completely. And also just making a declaration like that and on that kind of thin-skinned basis, like, you're trying to fundraise as a philanthropic organization from everybody. So announcing like some kind of stark political affiliation, wouldn't that like maybe, I don't know, turn off half of your donor base? So that was troubling, maybe irresponsible. I'm like, yeah, bad move. I don't see that being particularly clear or helpful. Although I didn't see a whole lot of, fundraising efforts going on, nor have I seen anything that I would take as serious since. And, or, the horrendous so-called joke that he told on the Stevie Weeby show, and then did another live about it, doubling down, trying to explain himself. And it gaslight us all into changing the reality of like, what the heck comedy is to serve its own purposes. And not only like it's not good, it's not connected to anything in his life. It's insulting to two different protected classes of people. Well, I don't, if I guess on that one, you could go back. It's, it's on his channel. It's around. And it's multiple public indiscretions that, necessitated some kind of half-hearted public apology, that served kind of more as convenient narratives than anything kind of to the point. So, which there were a bunch. The declaration of war against anyone who was even loosely or apparently affiliated with DOA or even tolerant of DOA. And this is all from the largest channel in the land, who, like, whether or not he wants to take ownership for having any responsibility for anything, he is, in fact, the loudest, largest voice. And with that kind of access and influence, that's power, right? And with power comes responsibility. And if you're going to eschew that responsibility, maybe you're not to be trusted anymore with the messaging for this. So, which he does seemingly. I mean, he's not a leader. He's not directing anybody to do anything. So all the people that have been kind of bullied and cajoled behind the scenes, I guess, you know, that are all starting to speak up one at a time by this person, you know, I guess they've got to be all liars by, well, his reasoning, and he said so directly. So on top of that, I mean, what he started with the dehumanizing of DOA was so dangerous and unconscionable at the time. It was so dangerous. First off, to not recognize that for whatever you may not like about, or criticisms you may have about DOA or his actions, this person was going through a completely understandable and predictable mental health crisis. Now, I would ask any of you who may be thusly critical, have you ever survived a swatting? What about 7? What about one where they have you laying down, face down on the ground with the long guns on you? One itchy trigger finger, somebody sees you move the wrong way or just get scared, you're done. That many times, right? And that all built up to that point. And it was just like, I mean, I think like many of us, I was afraid this person was going to die right before our eyes many times. And to dehumanize and to negate the efforts of somebody that gave so much so freely of themselves, their entire person. If you're risking your entire butt on the street, that's everything that is your future, all the information that's contained in you as a person. You're offering everything that you have. In theater, the tradition is to bow, and it's not to heap praise on yourself. It's offering the people in front of you your head. I am at your service for anything, to be dispatched. So, and then to continue stirring up the vitriol against this person so that they had people literally tracking him down to do physical harm to him and still not stopping. So at that point, that to me, that goes to it's beyond irresponsible. It's nearly incitement. And again, this, like, 20 times the size of DOA's channel at least. And it's just, it was unnecessarily cruel, and another instance where it just showed profound weakness and insecurity. You wouldn't have to do that if you were standing on solid ground with a foundation that was doing the good work and that was impeccable. You wouldn't have to mention these people. You wouldn't have to engage. But like a moth to the flame, he's going to go to the mat for all of this. Seemingly, it's like coming out swinging. It's all fight. And I guess it doesn't matter how badly some of us get hurt, how many like legal trucks we get run over with. We're all on an ice floe now, if we're on this team, or like if you tried to help Scott in any way, you're on this ice floe, and to varying degrees, or whatever the heck is Caprice leads himself to at the time. This is tough. And then there's so many other instances than the ones I am relaying. These are the ones that came to mind as I was preparing for this. Then there's Liz and Laura, and they're live talking about their childhoods and how this supposed philanthropist bullied and cajoled his way onto Liz's channel to gaslight them And to split semantic hairs, and with half a hair in hand would call Liz and Laura liars. These people who we know have like some of the toughest survivor stories that we've heard, and you can't show them the understanding and the grace in that moment when things get complicated. No, your first instinct is to shut them down. Is not to serve this person that your organization is supposedly trying to help, but vilify them. And not only through you, but through proxies, through multiple proxies. That is not charitable. That is not magnanimous. It's vicious, it's vindictive, it's venal. It all speaks to somebody that's on a self-aggrandizing crusade, rather than the founder of a charitable organization. That these little PR, I don't know, to use a Scientology word, flaps, are more important than the people that you're interacting with by your image as the founder of something that's meant to, well, at least be stable and providing services. And, well, generally there's been very little clarity on any of that. So, I mean, to me, like, and I said it before, no head of a charity that I know of could survive a couple of these. They'd be gone. For the sake of everything else that everybody else is trying to do, they would not be around anymore. But this is his pet project for now. So, I mean, to the thing where there isn't much specificity on what the heck the foundation was proposing to do, what they were going to fundraise on, what their programs, the scope of them, who would be waved in, what the criteria was, what people could expect coming in the door trying to access these services. So, I mean, I did, I started asking questions publicly because, that's kind of my natural inclination. I have some experience with this. I've been around. I've worked for charities, charitable organizations with international reach. My family, raised hundreds of millions of dollars and built brick and mortar buildings, affordable housing with wraparound services. Like I know this in my bones. And I know what lifers look like who dedicate their lives to these causes. And Aaron has no resemblance to any of them. So it wasn't clear. It was just a bunch of vague talk about what they were proposing to provide. It was help to, former and Scientologists coming out. What does that mean? Right? Are you going to be able to place them, right? Or do they have to come to you with diagnoses and already programs for treatment? Do you have a social worker to do evaluation and do placement? Do you have anything like not clear? But, some things did become clear. And what became clear was that the board barely met, confirmed by a few different lines. That the total fundraising wouldn't pay for one social worker for the year, let alone other giving for other people's, treatments and services. Wouldn't pay for like one professional to do the proper evaluation. So generally not serious, because you need people like that to be able to to be able to know what you're doing and that what you're doing is effective at all. I mean, you're asking people with no mental health training, with like very little trauma awareness, to be able to make cogent decisions about what people should and should not have and which people should or should not have treatment. It's crazy. It's not to be taken seriously, really. So yeah, one social worker, people have trouble navigating the U.S. medical health system. It is a little opaque. They make you jump through a lot of hoops, right? And so to 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 not have anything like that on offer. Okay. And so then we find out that this phone number just, went to Aaron's phone, he got voicemails. I think it was a Google number. And that there wasn't anybody manning the phones. Now, this is a serious problem. Okay. Now, a lot light has been made of this by Foundation members. This has been made light of. People who are desperately in need of this kind of help, it is difficult and nearly impossible to make that first step, whether it's like depression, self-harm lines, anything like this. To make that first step is the hardest thing. And these people that are reaching out for help, they want to be sure that if they make that first step, there's help on the other side of that phone. Immediate help on the other side of that phone. Like, in this moment, I'm having a crisis and I have gotten up the courage for this 10 seconds to make this call, and this will be my chance. They need to know that there's actually help. And organizations that provide these services, they also know that even with everything being right, with you showing what help you can give them, showing people that the phones are constantly manned or personed, and indicating what you can provide for them, it is still difficult to get the word out clearly and to get people to call in the best circumstances. And this number and this foundation provided none of those basics to attract people. None of them. So how would you ever expect somebody in crisis to call such a place, especially when it became public that there's nothing doing here? So the fact that he was ever trying to cover himself with that is, again, more evidence that this person is not serious about this, has not been, has done it for appearance's sake as far as I can tell. I would love for it to be different. I would love to know about all of the success stories that their wonderful fundraising is doing for all of these people. We haven't heard so much of that. What we've heard about is the vilification of one of the major beneficiaries of this foundation's only freaking work. That they attacked somebody, that they used as a poster child, poster person for their efforts. So how would that attract anybody else to the foundation? If, like, now the history is, oh, well, you get out of line, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. It's terrible. It's terrible that anybody would think to make any such move representing this foundation is it's unbelievable. It breaks the brain. Each one of those events against those people, unconscionable, and grounds in, anything that I would want to be a part of, termination from any further involvement in any such organization because of just like, well, no one would believe such an organization. And the thing is, I think people are less and less. And I wanted this ship to turn around. I didn't want to continue to be asking questions into the dark about this without people completely understanding, until maybe they got on their feet, or maybe, they would stop swinging and act like the bigger person and channel, like, act like, maybe they're the beneficiary of all, the resources that they have from, their dealings on YouTube and their professional life, that they're so hot to describe. Yeah. So he was given a fund, right? So he was brought into like Scientology business and given a fund. Okay. So like, I don't know, after the last economic collapse, you could have manage a stock index fund and make money hand over fist with the rise in the market, right? Same with real estate. After that, you could fall off a log and represent real estate and be successful. So, and especially if you are positioned with a portfolio first. So, like, his success to me, I'm sorry, I know people of power and consequence. That isn't it. It's not. It's not it. So, you know, if you're saying I'm jealous of his success in his large S, it ain't nothing. It ain't no concern of mine. And no, I wouldn't, you couldn't pay me to have his experience professionally. You couldn't pay me to do that. And I mean, I guess that's why I never took those jobs. But so yeah, that's my little rant about that, I guess. But yeah, so about the jealousy, I guess, you know, there's been some kind of, again, vague talk in his live today about protesters depending on him for support, to be shouted out by him for financial support. And for a long time, I haven't wanted anything from this person. I would want peace on the street, perhaps. I would want there to be kind of the free flow of information, a détente enough so that we could recognize each other's humanity enough to do the necessary work in this community. That's what I would wish, but that's not what I found. And to indicate that we were trying to put ourselves in a position of dependency to this person is insane. And that, I mean, to me, there's no evidence of it. I've been kind of earlier critical, I think, and have suffered for it of this person. I've been looking for this at all. You know, the legal defense, we didn't ask for anything. The only thing we asked for this person, and that they pledged, was a referral. We were looking, you know, it's hard to find a lawyer that will defend you against Scientology. The word is out, it's tough going, and maybe they'll dox you, maybe they'll fair game you and your family, right? So some people don't want to do it. And so a referral was actually what we needed and what we were looking for. We like, it would be nice if what I see as the most important work in the protest movement, which is winning cases, successfully bringing cases, or defending ourselves against frivolous cases that Scientology brings, like showing and reading into the court record their pattern of abuse, their abusive use of the judicial system, the waste of money on top of the waste of the city's money for the emergency response, their lack of forthrightness, their lack of honestly engaging in discovery process, misrepresenting many things. Like having that all read into the public record and having a citable body of cases so that further protests can be aided by those things that they can cite in court is the next level of any protest movement. It's how you get change within the society from the institutions of government. And to turn a blind eye to all of that, yeah, no, it's irresponsible. It shows in a lack of awareness of what all of this is for, of what protests are, of what the history of this is, of what any of these social movements were from the beginning of the 20th century on. All of those assertions show a supreme ignorance of all of that. So yeah, you know, if we asked for anything, it's for a referral. And then he pledged some things. This was brought up before. It sticks in my craw too. I mean, he pledged to shout out and promote KK's Families Fund. And on top of that, we tried to shovel money from Squirrel Fest that we had raised for the SPTV Foundation in KK's name. Even, I mean, that's after I had all these misgivings and questions. I still wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see where this goes. You know, there was the announcement of some provision of services, the shots, all right. So let's go. Let's see if we can do this. Raise the money. Tried to hand it over several times. They were unable to do it. They were unable to be in receipt of it. As far as I can tell, it's still the EIN number thing. And to my knowledge, this hasn't been resolved. So I'm not sure if, from any such fundraising effort that they can take it in, or how it is that they're doing business if they're not able to put this in the organization's coffers. And also that hasn't been made clear. So, and these would all be, this lack of awareness, these misunderstandings would all be barriers to actually being able to do fundraising. And again, a philanthropic organization such as this should be clear about all of these things, and they're not. So here we go. So we have a bunch. So recently, maybe you've noticed Aaron's lost some board members. A variety of people for a variety of reasons. They have their own stories to tell, and again, it clearly doesn't show health or strength of an organization. All the respect and love to Serge and Michael in the bravery that they showed by relaying this information to all of us. And to do what I always hoped Serge would do on that board, which was to be the voice of reason, and when things got like this, to speak up. I thought it would be, oh, Aaron, you're inviting maybe some criticism ultimately that you're not going to be able to deal with, and that it might always go that way. But either way, I thought Serge handled himself beautifully, and I very much appreciate that. I know that wasn't easy. So now, on the heels of that, and after a round of public criticism from others, and on the heels of that, Pearl doing a live, Liz doing a live, Aaron kind of comes out of a hiatus to trash the protesters. Like, regarding us as misbehaving children that are begging for scraps at his table, that we're out of line, all of these, basically a bunch of straw man arguments that have nothing to do with the actual work that's being done on the street, the issues at hand, everything to do with him providing a red herring for damage control for his public image, right? So, and then again to engage in further attacks against Liz. Further attacks. Saying something like, wow, it must be some kind of a fraud because you're benefiting, to this tune. Yeah. You put up somebody as, like a poster person for your efforts without doing hardly anything else. And then as soon as that person gets even like barely out of line and out of your control, you burn them to the ground. Unconscionable. And to put he put a popularity bar and a market viability measure on what legitimate protest is and whether or not we're deserving of assistance or any consideration for his support. So all of this is a pattern. It's a pattern of not understanding what this is. It's a pattern of not being able to engage even with the barest, merest criticism and thin-skinnedness. It's a pattern of choosing public perception over substance over and over again. A pattern of a lack of self-awareness and impulse control in multiple instances that, drew a bunch of condemnation and ire to himself and his foundation. In short, just plainly self-interested. And I wish it weren't so, because I mean, honestly, there are people that need help. There are people that need more than what these people are offering. To be able to actually do this work, there's so much more groundwork that anyone would need to do to provide real services to this population. It really hurts to see him do things like this. So let's see. So yeah, for instance, I guess I'm just going to go into this, guys.
It's amazing to me to have seen in the last week or two people who have actually been financially helped by the foundation accuse the foundation of being a fraud. That's one hell of a fraud. I thought if it was a fraud, I'd be keeping the money. I have seen someone, even yesterday, who has received thousands of dollars of money from the SPTV Foundation for therapy.
Like it's a big joke, Aaron, right? Like it's a big honking. This is so funny. You're wheeze laughing about how you're denigrating a recipient of your generosity. This is what people can expect if they get in any way out of line. Don't try to understand or recognize, like, the history of betrayal and trauma that this specific individual has had to endure, far more than just about anything else that I've heard in Scientology, far more than you. And that you would stoop to this level to say anything like this just exactly shows what your motivations are.
Say that the foundation is a fraud, a grift, and a scam. That's a hell of a scam. I'm glad it worked out for you. I'm glad my scam worked out so well for you. More to come on that later, but you can watch that on the SPTV Foundation YouTube channel when the video is ready. It's not ready yet. Okay, let's see.
So if I'm to understand that, he's thinking about doing a hit piece on Liz on the Foundation channel. I mean, again, is this in any way the actions of somebody meaning to do well for survivors? Should any of us trust this person one step further until they've made perhaps a complete recanting of all of this, and the biggest mea culpa that I can't even imagine what would do at this point. And it would be up to the individuals who he harmed, I think, to accept it or not, and us all to decide it individually. So this is all for me. I'm not telling anybody what to do. Again, I understand a lot of people like this person. I don't think less of you just because of that. Just because you like this person, I understand. And there's some useful stuff there. But I felt called to making this video because now it's overly harmful and nearly exclusively. So, I mean, each one of these makes me sick. I'm kind of shaking. So yeah, this goes to the truth of the matter.
I make a donation to the SPTV Foundation. Is this donation tax deductible? So in order for a donation to be tax deductible, the foundation has to officially have received its determination letter from the IRS that we have been granted the 501c3 status. That application has been pending for many, 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 many months. I have very good reason to believe we will hear word back in approximately 3 weeks. So the honest answer is until we have 501c3 status, my understanding is you should not be able to deduct that donation. But once we do, you will. So.
Okay, well, you know, all of this would have been great to know at the outset. Be clear that this organization that you've started is not fully operational. We can't take anything in. We can't absolve you of your tax burden if you do donate to us. We can't do the basics. Maybe we're going to have to use our own accounts. I don't know. Right? Be upfront that you're getting this up on its feet, not that like you've got it going, right? Because that's what you represented. That's what I think we all were led to believe that we were supporting out there on the street. And we come to find that they weren't even doing the basic office work of like meeting and deciding what to do. So it's hard to take seriously, although the consequences are so really quite horrible. So yeah, and so, you know, let's see if I should do this one first. So he said he said that helping the protesters. Let's see, I'm not sure which one is this. So like, sorry guys.
Someone goes, well, whoa, why? What's your purpose for being on YouTube? Is it to get out the word and do the real work, or is it to grow your channel? Those are the same things.
Not necessarily, Aaron. Okay. So to you, that might be true. Okay. So you can get the word out in a particular way. And maybe that's what Mike Rinder and Leah Remini were telling themselves when they offered the sanitized version of the Survivor stories as offered on the Aftermath show. And that whatever it was that they were leaving out, I mean, it's fine because of the greater good that I'm doing here, sending out the message. Well, more than actually doing that, they were feathering their own nest with a freaking media career. And that's what I find to be true here again, is that you want to make synonymous the aims of the entire movement and the growth of your channel. And so then if you're not supporting the growth of his channel, if you accept that, then you're not actually supporting the movement. Oh, funny how that works, right? So
how do you think you can get the word out if you don't have any freaking, audience? Getting a bigger audience is how you get the word out more and more and more. I think protesters.
You know what else would get the word out about a foundation providing services to those in need? Providing the services. You know what else would do? Fundraisers. Gala fundraisers. The announcement of, what you expect to do programmatically for the first, the third and the fifth year in the form of a prospectus that you would offer to anybody, and projections, programmatic evaluation, anything like that. So you would know what you were doing, if it was effective, if the money that you were spending was effective, and if not, how not. So you could change it. These are things that a serious organization might consider.
Have to think about that when considering how and if they are going to be able to do what they're doing sustainably over the long term. Streets has an audience that is big enough and is passionate enough that if Streets ever needed money for bail or a lawsuit, he would not need to ask other channels to help him raise that money. The fact is, other channels would also jump in to help him raise that money because they would be happy and proud to. But the fact is, it's worth stating, Streets wouldn't need the help.
So anybody that needs help, right? If you're not big enough as a channel, as like Streets, who I completely admire, I'm not really sure how well he would take that statement, because as far as I could tell, Streets goes out of his way. If somebody's out there in need, is in legitimate need, like you know, from the dude on the street who needs like not just Scientology protesters, not just protesters of other things. He's there to minister to his fucking community directly and immediately. And so, and not all of us can be these leaders, right? And there isn't enough room in the world for all of us to be like that. So just, again, he's trying to make this argument that you're being irresponsible if you're out there protesting and you don't have the largesse or the viewership to be able to cover any and all legal expenses that you might incur, that Scientology might throw at you. What's that? What is that saying? That's saying virtually no one go out there and protest because it's not safe, because you're irresponsible, and if you can't cover all of yourself, then meh. So luckily there is generosity in this community, and when asked, for very many of these cases, the community has stepped up. Not because of Aaron all the time, many times in spite of. So he's trying to differentiate himself or lump himself in with streets and other people of means as the only responsible players who should or could possibly hit the street, which, I mean, I really felt this video was, he did himself a very serious disservice. It's just, it's a lot of openings for criticism, and really kind of unbalanced statement.
Users have to examine what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they're uploading, and whether someone who knows nothing about Scientology, knows nothing about who you are, what you're doing, or why you're doing it, would stumble upon your stuff and go, huh, I think I'd like to see more of this. Protest.
Okay, so it's funny, you know, I received this clip. Thank you very much, Dr. Who Heather, for helping me out here. Just wonderful. That this, well, let's see it again. Let's see it again.
Users have to examine what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they're uploading, and whether someone who knows nothing about Scientology, knows nothing about who you are, what you're doing, or why you're doing it, would stumble upon your stuff and go, huh, I think I'd like to see more of this.
So, I mean, you know, it might be good basic advice for different streamers if you're looking to do that thing with, like, you know, you have like a catchy intro, you have all the things, like, you know, anybody doing that, it's fun. Dude, no no shade am I throwing here, but I'm also saying, if we're conditioning the audience to only accept that because that's what the algorithm accepts, right? So if we're conditioning people within the community that you have to be like kind of YouTube media trained in order to do this, that's also a barrier to entry that's arbitrary and unnecessary. It's not necessary. There's plenty of content that I love that is slow going, that's just showing presence on the street. Maybe you don't have to stay with it all the time, but once you know what's going on, those people are great. And if in this statement you're saying, okay, well, you know, get your media chops together. Again, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can do a stream. Not everybody, even if they do a stream, wants to be fully pictured or like have this kind of engagement. We have to try to find ways, and I would like to cultivate more acceptance within our audience for all of this stuff, to show and highlight what the variety of approaches are and how they're variably effective. And that's what I think a lot of channels started to do by bringing on the, you know, the streamers and the chatters and, you know, different people who are involved. So the Cultology twins and Eric and myself, Thursdays at 2, a lot of people tried to shift to a format where we could try to show this and celebrate all of it, because it's all accepted, it's all useful, it's all necessary. And what else is necessary is kind of some amount of working together with these with this variety of approaches, because honestly, that's how you get this stuff done. That's how I've seen it get done. And the amount that people are saying it's this one method of protest over any other, to the exclusion of others, is doing themselves, and I think the entire movement, a disservice. Because I've found in history, if you look at the history of all of these movements, none of that's true. And we're like, different people are going to reach different people for different reasons on different days. So you need different approaches. So we'll see what this is.
If someone were to create a nonprofit dedicated to protester funds, it would be the beginning of the end. Scientology would infiltrate that motherfucker like no one's business.
Oh, that. We're so scared, Aaron. If we even tried, right? If we even tried to set up something to protect the protesters, they would just be in it. Not that anybody else besides maybe yourself could hold their water, or since you're not brave enough to do anything like this, you'd warn the rest of us against it, poisoning the well by saying this isn't even a viable approach. Again, not a viable approach to try to protect the protesters, because why? Ooh, OSA's coming for you. Yes, of course. Infiltration of any such organization is, I mean, they're going to try, of course. And so you put up methodologies by which that cannot happen, right? If you've ever protected intellectual property that's worth a lot of money, like one of my office jobs, I had a key where I passed through 5 security doors to get into my office, and then another extra one once you were in our little office enclave to get the really valuable information. So there are easy, ready, off-the-shelf systems whereby you can resist most of this. And also training of the people you have working with you and your staff as to what to recognize, and a system of reporting so that you can recognize any incursion. It's not impossible. And especially if you make it an impossible boogeyman, I mean, you know, geez, it's just you're protecting yourself from your cowardice.
In protesters to work the long game and become really good friends with people. Guys, the best infiltrator is the one you think could never be an infiltrator. That's how Scientology does it. Okay. I will just throw out there the fact that the protester community in LA and Chicago and Austin has become so toxic and hateful that people don't want to participate and people don't want to support. The fact that that is the exact result Scientology itself would have wished for should make you, at least wonder. Okay, it should make you at least wonder.
Okay, so I mean, some little that little bit at the end. Oh wow, just kind of wonder. I'm just asking Tucker Carlson like questions here.
It should make you at least wonder.
Okay, this mother may I pose. It should make you wonder why the people engaging in the regular forms of street protest, for anything that I've ever seen, for anti-war, for human rights, the AIDS advocacy protest stuff that I did in the 90s, the people trying to defend others from the Catholic Church in front of abortion clinics. It takes being loud. It takes, at times, being confrontational. It takes having your voice being heard and demonstrating in such a way that people take notice, demonstrating your displeasure. And what it seems you want is this hand-holding, nicey nice thing called protest by you for your demographic so that you can make the most money. So you're not interested in actually doing the work and shutting the doors down, right? Because what had happened here in Austin, which we verified in black and white, is we took their business to the toilet. By staying on them, by doing exactly what we were doing. And the community very much appreciated us for that. Now, you may have been heaping scorn on us from 30,000 feet. Honestly, we stopped taking notice, okay? because we knew there was no help coming and it was just going to be like raining whatever it is that you rain. It isn't anything pleasant. So long ago did we give up on, I think being supported in that way, and just carried on as we were. And so, yeah, there's been this nasty resurfacing of this idea that all protest has to be, sotto voce, and non-confrontational. It's just like there isn't a whole lot of historic precedent for that. And especially if you're talking child traffickers, especially if you're talking about people that we know the individual crimes of, when us protesters, we're the ones getting assaulted. If you didn't notice, Aaron, we're having crimes committed against us. I was assaulted the first day that I was out there in Chicago, and the next day, and multiple times after that. Okay, actually twice on my first day. So, I'm not really sure what you're playing for, Aaron, other than just like complete control and gaslighting the entire movement into believing your version of reality and what protest is, your definition for all of these terms. When it is any of these points of view, it's a negotiation. You're not a willing participant in anything like a negotiation, as far as I can tell. So, back on the heels of saying, oh, it'd be the craziest thing, and you couldn't possibly start like a foundation to support the protesters' legal funds. But then
there's no legal defense fund, guys. And by the way, if anyone watching this video is like, you're full of shit, I'm creating one anyway, go for it. I'm just putting out information that I think would be helpful. If someone wants to go and create something like this, it's bad. It's a bad idea. It would be ill-advised. It will open the door for Scientology to infiltrate and create irreparable harm and destruction and division in the protester community.
Oh, okay. So he says it's bad. Says it's bad again. It's not a good idea. And then, without anything to back it up, and then says definitely it's just going to be where Scientology infiltrates and makes all the division. No, actually, if you had a legal defense fund, if you had like a lawyer in a $5,000 Armani kicking down the door of the precinct asking for my client each and every time they drag us off the street, they wouldn't drag us off the street so easily or handle us so roughly, because then at that point, each and every time they did that, that would be the Bearcat that they cost the city, or like those patrol cars, or whatever surveillance equipment they were looking for next season. I don't know what you're talking about or what phantasms you believe are necessarily going to follow anybody offering a legal defense fund. Aaron, do you understand that in so many protest movements like this, there in fact are these legal defense funds, and they're not always effective, but I've seen them be effective. You know what happens when you show up for an anti-war protest in Boston? You all arrive at the place before the place where you're parading, right, to receive instructions from somebody as to, this is what we're here for. This is the message that we're trying to put over. Okay, are we looking to get arrested? If so, in what manner? What are the rules, right? What did our lawyer say? And if and when you do get arrested on the steps of whatever this courthouse and you're dragged off by the cops, this is the number to call. Anybody that's done this work knows this exists. Anybody that's done it seriously. Aaron, you don't know what you're talking about. You've been playing in a world of fantasy about this, of YouTube fantasy about this. And like that has very little, at least your version of it has very little bearing to the reality of the street. So let's take it back a little bit here.
It's a bad idea. It would be ill-advised.
Ill-advised.
It will open the door for Scientology to infiltrate and create irreparable harm and destruction and division in the protester community. Yeah. But that being said, anyone out there can do it with a few clicks of a button and a few hours of admin. You can create your own nonprofit and attempts to raise all the money that you want. So knock yourself out.
So, in that live, he said, yeah, well, it wouldn't be exactly right, proper, or I think he characterizes it as illegal for his foundation to engage in that same kind of activity. And that might be true by the bylaws of the foundation or how he has the thing structured. I'm not exactly sure. I believe that, but I also understand that you can contract just about anything. So if he wished to, he could do this. And so, yeah, what he's doing is saying, this is a fruitless effort. You shouldn't do anything like this. This isn't even possible. And potentially it's like dropping an atomic bomb. It's going to cause like zombies to come, I don't know, out of the woodwork, and they're all going to be OSA, and they're going to eat your brains, and then we're all going to be OSA zombies. I saw a lot of scare tactics there, and not a lot of reality. The presentation of anything to back that up, or the recognition that any of us could actually handle ourselves. So, against such infiltration. So yeah, a few clicks. Let's see. Yeah, I'm really.
Community has gotten too divided and toxic and hateful and spiteful and petty and childish for it to be fun.
So, okay, hateful and spiteful. Okay. So who's been spewing hate? Now, what I've seen coming in from you have been an array of different intensities, kind of criticisms against you, your behavior, and the goings on with the foundation. Some of these kind of unfounded, maybe shooting from the hip. Some of them may be completely scurrilous. But somebody with your position, I mean, you really shouldn't be taking this so seriously. And in response to each and every one of those, you come down like the hammer of Thor. And here's another one where you come down like the hammer of Thor, knocking down people who really don't need any more knocking down, Aaron. People with some of the worst life histories as far as overcoming abuse and having to deal with PTSD. They do not need to be knocked down anymore, Aaron. Maybe if you were pledging to help them, you would just do that. You wouldn't for 1 second think to come out and say anything like this. I mean,
Community has gotten too divided and toxic and hateful and spiteful and petty and childish for it to be fun.
Yeah, this used to be fun. Okay? Right? Until, I don't know, somebody here started to cause a lot of division and had a lot of reach and a lot of influence and was directing people on his channel and behind the scenes by multiple avenues to institute this division, to perpetuate it, to make us feel like we didn't have a place anymore, so many of us. Not because you weren't promoting us. I don't fucking care. Never really did. I don't respect you because I don't think you do very much that is deserving of respect. And if you did, I don't know, there might be something else to say. I'll leave that door open for you, for me. I'm not declaring Aaron an inhuman person. I'm declaring him a supremely self-interested, arrogant, and self-aggrandizing person, in my opinion. And anybody can do with that what they want. I wouldn't tell you what to do. But Aaron went out there and told people what to do. Who's the problem? Where the division is? Where to put the knife in? Who made it unfun? Who has the motive and opportunity? Right? Who has the opportunity? Aaron, do you have an opportunity better than all of us with your 200,000+ freaking people in your subscribership? Do you not feel any sense of responsibility for that? And how you can, like a colossus bestriding the land, step on so many of us so easily, so blithely. And while, you were so good to try to inspire people to get onto the street, to make content off of that you admitted you were making money and content off of. You're very, very much interested in that. But as soon as any of it became problematic and you had to answer for anything, you burnt us all. And you're still doing it. And, you know, like today you went after, well, both you and Natalie, you know, you go after Liz. She's shut down her channel. Maybe you thought she wouldn't come back. Maybe you thought she had gone away, right? Maybe you thought it was too hard. It was too expensive. Or maybe you're just used to using Liz as a punching bag. I think that's probably more it, but it's all of it. So,
indeed. And please just let me take the opportunity to reiterate. If Scientology does, in fact, succeed in taking out a restraining order against a protester for what is obviously trumped up BS things, I want to be able to ask my community to consider supporting the fees for that protester.
Okay. This is all kind of in the, I want to be able to ask, to consider, to maybe, really mealy-mouthed. Okay? So while we're all going through this, right, and the people have received TROs and other charges of varying degrees of severity, it's upended their lives, right? It's completely upended their lives. And you're like, okay, so just, you know, well, obviously be responsible and be rich like me, and you can take care of it yourself. But he wants to be able to, if you've only in these conditions. And so, I don't know, we've had some conversations like way back in the day about, okay, what if they did put together a legal fund? And it, you know, kind of became clear this kind of analysis or playing favorites or a popularity contest would then kind of, that kind of rubric or measuring test would be brought to bear. And probably a lot of us would get rejected. And it's seemingly true here. I'm not clear, you know, with all the videos that Aaron has done on the cases in California, I'm not sure if he's supportive of anybody other than Street's case. I'm unclear on the other ones because I don't think he's made it clear. So, man, my brain's starting to fry a little bit. This is a whole lot.
And the more bad blood, being out there creating bad blood and finger pointing and drawing lines and promoting tribalism and
okay, creating bad blood, drawing lines, and creating tribalism. From this live, we saw all three. All three of those things. So yeah, it's rare that I comment on things like this because, again, it can always be, well, you're causing the division by just commenting on it. This person directly attacked very many vulnerable people under the table, trying to play this dumb show of no names while trotting it all out. Name somebody that he claims. I'm not even going to get into that.
criticizing harshly and unjustly. You're doing exactly what Scientology is also trying to do.
Oh, really? So, you know, this doesn't seem inclusive anymore, other than, at least on your channel, for anybody other than like the people in your chat. You don't seem to be cool with just about any protesters, but, you know, the ones that do absolutely everything that you say. So I'm not exactly sure who has the unity message here,
which is to make the space in the community so muddy and ugly and unpleasant that people don't want to engage and they don't want to support. And that is what you have seen happen in the protest community.
Okay, so now all of these terms need defining. what does he mean by the ugliness, and does he mean raising your voice at all? Does he mean just the infighting between different protesters? Because both of those happened with just about every protest movement. So just like, I don't know, if you want to be around for any of this work, kind of, develop kind of a skin for both of those things. I'm not exactly sure. Besides, I could only be led to believe that it's only about the attacks on him, and that muddying the water about the foundation, muddying the water about his own person and the people that he would like to protect right now, pretty much for his own purposes. Because as far as I can tell, being loyal to Aaron Smith Levin is no guarantee of anything.
Primarily in Los Angeles, and then also in Chicago and Austin. And it's
so Los Angeles, Chicago, and Austin, right? So without naming names, the trouble spots, these people that dared to speak out about anything, dared to speak out about how, lies were being told about them, or about how they were being accused of committing, multiple crimes that they never could have possibly committed, or anything like that. These people causing division by, like myself and so many others, just having to barely protect ourselves from having our characters eviscerated by a bunch of lying liars and the lies that they tell. So, with no support at the same time. Thank you very much.
Unfortunate.
From you.
But let's not let those individuals crowd out the people who actually want to do this the right way.
Look, we're not trying to crowd out anybody. We might want to offer our own opinions, and they might be critical opinions. They might be that. Yeah, absolutely. But as far as like, it's either me or you, I don't think anybody has this mentality other than you. Because I can tolerate you being here. I can tolerate this. I can tolerate all of the other modes of protest as long as they're effective. I want all of it, right? But you are identifying something that's problematic for you personally, and you're trying to make it into something that's just like, this is just not how protest is done. This is, and I know because of all of my successes and experience in the world of protest and social movements in general, and philanthropy, believe me. So
okay, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they would say.
Okay, so I mean, throwing the protesters out with the protest movement, would that be characterized as the baby out with the bathwater? I think, to my mind, it could be. It could be just like that. It's funny how unaware this person is of their own statements. Yeah. Let's see what this is.
And the fact is, when you have the community or the movement get infiltrated by some folks who then choose to, like, for entertainment purposes or for some egotistical self-serving purposes, choose to now fracture and divide and destroy the community and draw lines and promote tribalism. The fact is that has made the community and the audience of the community just not as interested in supporting many of the people in the community. And that is a shame.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, this is like the furtherance of his witch hunt against DOA and anybody associated with DOA, as being all of the same sort, and as he mischaracterized him and his efforts as being, just completely divisive and not in any way productive. This all could have been something that you dealt with if you didn't just fight so hard, if perhaps if you availed yourself of like some amount of introspection, you're able to get like a hold of, how do I get into these messes all the time with these people who have all of these ideas about me? Is it my fame and my beauty and perhaps it's something you're doing. Perhaps you have some quirks and biases that you have yet to discover, and I think a lot more than that. But I think the creed over the Temple of Apollo at Delphi reads, know thyself. I don't mean like the medical in a general, like, beginning of Western philosophy idea from Socrates, Know thyself. And to me, this, you're pointing out DOA, you're talking way more about yourself because, again, 20 times the channel. You keep on hammering on about this issue. You won't let it go. You won't let anybody out from under your boot heel who you're still kicking as soon as they like come up for air anywhere. It's not that you won't support us. How about stop kicking our teeth out publicly, you know, through semantically, you know, not literally, not physically, obviously. But perhaps you could stop kicking us with freaking steel-toed boots, Aaron. Maybe you'd get a better reaction from some of us if you could stop yourself for half a season so that any of us could ever trust you again. But, you know, again, I'm not holding my breath for that. Oh, it looks like, okay, so I need to remove some things from the studio to be able to add anymore. So let's just do a couple of those. We're not going to have to go back, and I don't need these as permanent fixtures on on this. I don't really feel the desire to retread this ground so very much. It's going to be hard to get the stink off me with this much. So here we go. Big Man on Campus coming up.
God, there's a story that I want to tell.
God. Oh, God.
Okay, I'll tell it this way. 86 was fully paying for the legal bills of one of the protesters.
Oh, wow. Of one of the protesters. You know, we have no idea what this story is, right? And so he's not going to use names. Okay, so by the way, before he launches into the rest of this, he says, I don't know how to tell the story. I don't know. You know, in the moment he told this story, he told this story on a live as this scenario was going down. Maybe many of you remember, and especially those of you who are personally involved.
And
I'm so full.
Another protester
Yes.
was telling the audience that 86 was actually secretly working to torpedo the lawsuit by intentionally, not the lawsuit, the 86 was paying for the legal bills of a protester who was having to defend themselves against a restraining order being brought by Scientology. Another protester was out there in the community very loudly accusing 86 of secretly working to torpedo the protesters' defense by intentionally hiring attorneys who were going to like secretly work behind the scenes with Scientology and force this protester to accept a plea deal that would have prevented them from protesting outside of any Scientology organization.
So what Aaron completely skips over in this entire analysis is that this was a very real threat. And wherever it did come from, maybe the source of that threat had to be, you know, in some way discovered. People were up against it. Like this protester that he's referring to was being thrown to the wolves by an expensive ass lawyer, was being given a plea, like being treated like, you know, how you would expect to get treated by a public defender who only had an hour to look at your case. Plead this out and you'll be barred from, you know, being around any Scientology building. Not a big deal, is it? You just had your, you know, your freedom of movement curtailed by a nothing because somebody wanted to take a plea. This is extremely serious, and he just kind of glosses over it. So just, no, well, for his own purposes, obviously, because he has a bigger point to make here other than somebody's freedom.
In other words, lies were being told about the man, 86, who's paying for the whole legal defense. Okay. Now, let's just say for the sake of this story.
Again, he reiterates paying for the whole legal defense as an emphatic. Like, that's the end all be all. Somebody plunks down money, it doesn't make them Gandhi. And Gandhi wasn't Gandhi anyway. So, like, no, that is a logical fallacy. Money does not make right, nor does might. I'm sorry, dude. If the guy made a mistake, and there are several other actions done by 86 GOP that led somebody to question what their motivations were, what their end goal was, what the heck they were doing in the chat, saying the things that they were doing. Was that intentional? We had questions, and legitimate questions. And you just snowed the whole thing, and you continue to do it. Here you go, basically crying over your sugar daddy.
Let's concede that the lawyer seemed to be doing a piss poor job.
Seemed to be doing a piss poor job. Okay, I was rightfully admonished for, like, even kind of jokingly saying that the performance was poor, and rightfully so, because this, it's a total, I would say, breach of trust with a client, completely misrepresenting their affairs, like, to the point where it's going to have them perhaps removed from the damn country. So, yeah, the thing is, they had thank you, Danny. They had success with that firm, and it was this specific guy. So there were questions. Whether or not that was a reality, that was yet to be seen. But at the time, there were legit questions, because there was all this stuff popping up about him in these cases that he wasn't answering for clearly, nor you as his conduit were clearly answering those questions. So I didn't want to identify anybody. Whoops. But we know who we're talking about, but even still. My general idea was that it's probably incompetence, probably gross incompetence, nearly like perhaps, the firm would think about, like, not renewing this person's contract or something along that level for such a poor performance, because it would take some polish off the apple at the very least. So, and the very fact that Aaron Smith Levin inserted himself into this drama was a way to drive a wedge between the California protesters, between the LA protesters. That's what he was on lives in the moment doing, trying to cover himself in the plight of the people that he supported against his, the target of his witch hunt, DOA. So,
It wasn't good enough just to point out that the lawyer was doing a poor job and maybe we needed a new lawyer. Instead, what happened is 86 was loudly and broadly characterized by this one other protester as literally being, his motives were called into question. Not only called into question, absolute claims were being made that 86 was secretly working with Scientology to destroy the protesters.
Might as well put forward the supposition.
On the very morning, on the exact same day that this loud protester was accusing 86 of secretly working with Scientology to torpedo this case, Streets LA was on the phone with me asking me to ask 86 for $10,000 more.
That's what you said on the day.
And I said, you know what? How can I ask 86 for more money when the person whose defense he's paying for is letting this other protester say these things about 86?
Letting? What responsibility does he have to control anybody else? He's letting him say this? He's allowing him to? Like he could stop him? Danny, you're doing this publicly. I'm going to show this one. Like, hey guys, I believe he called me a couple days after me firing the firm and told me why I'm not defending 86 GOP from Scotty, pretty much screaming at me. That's what you get for crossing Aaron and his desire to like make some cash. Right. And so as far as I could tell in the moment, Aaron, he's trying to protect himself with Danny's case and that cause and his involvement through 86 GOP and trying to do damage control. And I don't know, fell on his face a couple times in that very live. Well, I made a comment while he was doing that saying, you should have Danny on to talk about this. Because I was fairly aware, just instinctually, Danny doesn't want this. He doesn't want to be put in the middle of their fight. Because it doesn't help his case. It doesn't help anything that's going on with Danny. I really don't think. So why don't if you're going to speak for him, why don't you ask to have him on? He put up my comment and read me for filth for like 5 minutes. I lost 100 subscribers that day. It was, a bunch of people attacked me for trying to defend people this summer in similar ways. Things have changed a little bit from some of them, but not very much. Aaron's circling the wagons here, and so I think he's demanding
and not coming to his defense. I said, why would I expect this guy to keep helping in that way when the people he's helping aren't even willing to speak up in his defense? So I called the protester whose representation 86 was paying for. I said, bro, am I missing something? You've got a guy here paying 10? Hey,
you got a really good, nice legal defense here. It'd be a shame if there were anything that would happen to it, right, guys?
Was it $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 to pay for your bills?
That'd be a shame.
And you've got this other clown over here who everyone knows you support. Everyone knows this guy's your buddy. You got this clown over here saying these horrible, false things about 86, and you won't even ask him to stop? What is going on? And he goes, I'm terrified of him. He goes, I can't speak out against him. If I do, he'll destroy me.
Oh, you mean like you, Aaron?
Once he sets his sights on someone, he never stops.
Like
I can't
you,
survive
Aaron?
that.
You haven't stopped for months.
I said, okay.
I'll
do it for you.
Buddy.
I'll do it for you.
Oh,
so that you don't have to.
Okay, so, all right. So you will defend. I'm not sure who asked for that. There, buddy. Wow. So you took it upon yourself.
And then I did a video.
Nights and white satin. Never reaching the
person who I was helping, who 86 was helping.
Yeah, right. So, and that's a good point. I mean, and why would you, Danny? Like, you needed help. And so until it became Knives Out, of course. And like, I couldn't fault you for that. In no way, shape, I wouldn't think to. You're in an impossible position. Like, I had the hardest time this month. I had the hardest time getting the protective order here. As soon as I moved to Austin, it was so deflating. And I've been trying to scrape myself up off the floor from it. And trying to keep it together. I can only imagine, the scenario that y'all were in, and you were kind of taking the first round of these after Streets, and it was, me going next, and others. Okay. Donations tax deductible. I'm not. Oh, yeah.
Don't always hold it completely together. And I'm kind of a loud. I think I sound angry a lot of the times, even when I'm not angry, just because of my way of speaking.
Okay. So, is this like sure storying and safe pointing the audience to basically be like, hey, I know you're hearing a lot about me being a Titanic jerk face on the phone and being abusive and yelling at people to the point where they can't trust me to have a phone conversation with them anymore. That's just my personality. That's just how I come off. It couldn't be anything to do with me. It's just a bunch of, it's a bunch of people just misconstruing my actions. Anybody had a person in their life like this?
Particularly if it's on the phone and not in person. Like, I mean, I get animated and loud. There's a difference between yelling about something and yelling at something. I think oftentimes when I'm talking to someone, I'll be yelling about something, not at the person, but the person feels like I'm yelling at them. I just want to at least be honest about that.
Yeah, it's people that feel like it, right? It's just their feelings and your actions. They can't possibly, it's just my kind of personality quirks. It's how I come off as, like, I don't know, misogynistic and abusive.
It's not like I'm just some little puppy dog over here.
No, you're not a puppy dog. It seems, you snarl and bark and you try to scare people into doing what you want, just like every other kind of A-type personality person that's completely out of control and has pretty much unfettered access to a whole bunch of resources. And they don't have to ask anybody for anything so that they can work with basically, I don't know, impunity, I think. These last couple are some of the most disgusting side of it, and it shows the transactional nature of his thinking.
If you're doing your job right, you should be able to be supported by the viewers of this movement. But nobody owes it to you. And I think sometimes it might be worth considering, what if you just took the $1,000, pled down to the little thing that you're being accused of, and we take the L and we move on, instead of constantly asking for 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, finger pointing for who wants to support you, who doesn't want to support you. Oh my God. By the way, this person runs around to all the other channels. I asked for help from this person and they didn't answer my email in time. Or, oh my God, this person said they're going to do something and they didn't do it. It's
Aaron, it's not up to you. It's not up to you to decide what legitimate protest is, who deserves support from their own audience. Now, to me, this argument smacks of the idea that Aaron thinks that the entirety of the viewership is his property, and that some others of us, undeserving others are interlopers and infiltrators who are taking pieces of his pie that he owns. And so now he would like to decide for his audience, this is now irrelevant, this is now inconsequential, why should we be even doing this? Why don't you plead down to something that screws up your ability to be employed, to get a loan, to get housing? Why don't you just take it on the nose for something that you know is screwed up so that your life is permanently marred, so that I don't, as Aaron Smith Levin, so that I don't have to think about you, so that I don't have to even hear about being responsible for anything, ever, even the suggestion thereof. Now, again, I didn't ask you for anything. We didn't ask you for anything here. We got ours. We're good, and we're gonna be good, okay? Don't need you, didn't need you, all right? But this kind of talk, plea out, pay $1,000 and plea something out, so that you can feel better, so that you don't have to answer for it. So there's no possible blowback. Just make it easy. Fold for the dirty cops. Fold for the nonsense allegations made by Scientology. That's what he's asking people to do, so that he and his friends have a bigger piece of this pie that none of us have fucking taken from. because this is all his audience. Because anybody doing fundraising in this space to protect themselves legally, that's his, and he's asking for it.
Childish, it's petty, it's destructive, it's vindictive, it hurts the community. This person could have just paid $1,000 and gone on their merry way. But no, it's got to be more money, more money, more money, more money.
Just gross, Aaron. Completely, absolutely disgusting. That you think that way about any of us. And I don't think this is in reference to me. I think somebody might have spoken up for this. But for any of us. So many of us got out on the street with like our best foot forward, you know, fresh-faced and like really excited to do this stuff. And with the treatment by this, you know, kind of, well, apparent leader of this movement, somebody that's the founder of this with the largest channel, the largest reach, with the most money, and still he says, oh, I'm not a leader of anything. It's basically to absolve himself of any responsibility. But, you know, to be so treated in this way, to be regarded this way as trash, as disposable, as somebody that's just in the way, whining because they want a legal defense, because they don't want their permanent record marred. Because it's unjust. The things that they're being accused of and the way that it's being done is unjust. That's why you would defend yourself from something. If you are innocent, the expectation as an upstanding citizen is to defend yourself to the hilt. It's one of the most despicable things of this live. That he would go there, show his hand and his ass completely. If any, like, just, I mean, to me, these are all reasons to never trust this person again, if anything.
I gotta tell you, I think it's worth asking ourselves as members or supporters of this movement or this community. Is it worth $20,000 of our collective money to allow one protester with almost no subscribers?
Of our collective money. Who owns this? It's not yours. It's not mine. It's not anybody's. These are a bunch of individual people within the community. You don't own them. The assertion that you do just, I mean, it kind of shows where you're at. It shows where you're at. Self-serving finance bro. Everything transactional. Everything vying for my larger piece of this pie and muscling in to get it. Some of us have seen this in the boardroom. Some of us know investment bankers, people with real means. And again, you're not that. You're trying to be that. You are an aspirant to that position, certainly. But you smack of everything that the like landed gentry talks about when they use the term nouveau riche.
To continue protesting outside of one building where there are already a bunch of other protesters. At the risk of sounding callous and insensitive, I don't know that the evidence shows that it is. Okay. If we're going to have 100 protesters, 200 protesters, 300 protesters, in some of these instances, it would have cost $1,000 just to settle the whole issue and sort of not, you know, like to admit to the thing you are being accused of would have just cost $1,000.
Okay. So he's saying, wow, imagine if there were like a couple hundred of us that needed this help. Oh, wait, you know, I've seen that personally. I've seen it happen. I've seen people get help on that level. Again, it shows just like you don't know the culture of protest. You don't know the history. You don't know how it operates. And just about with every single word that you say about it, you expose your profound ignorance and an unwillingness to learn. You know, what else can you do with that? You don't care. You're not going to care. You make all the excuses. You're not answerable to anything, to anybody for any reason. The slightest provocation meets like let's blow the whole thing up. Screw all the protesters, I guess, right? You know, geez.
So now we're going to raise $20,000 just so you can keep protesting outside of one organization?
No. So that you can refute the batshit claims, so that you can clear your name, which is what anybody is seeking to do in these courts when allegations are made against them. You want people to fold up their tents and walk away because of the money. Because you think you own part of it. You say it's our money, it's our people, which basically means it's yours, right? You're trying to shovel it. Could possibly, you could be rich like this one day too. He used to say a lot about that, not anymore, right? You know, you'd like a freaking pyramid scheme or something, right? So, you know, sorry your downlines aren't providing you as much as they used to.
I don't know that makes sense.
Oh, you don't? Okay, defending yourself in a court of law. You're not sure if that makes sense to actually just spend the money, right? Or to like offer a defense. So what makes more sense to you is reflexively folding when it gets too hot or too expensive, again, perhaps marring your entire life, right? Accepting a restraining order when you haven't done anything, or when, in fact, like say in Danny's case, where to my mind, it looks like in that video, he was the person who was assaulted, and very convincingly, intentionally so, where it seemed like Danny jumped out of the way and this person turned at it like more than a 45-degree angle to make contact with him. So, I mean, it again, this is kind of the last straw for me in having any hope for positive action out of this person. If they'll so easily dehumanize and so easily put like this dollar amount and expose his greed, his grabbiness at this audience and any possible donations, that he would rather people take a plea than defend themselves. Take notice, people. This is dangerous.
Of like the sunk cost fallacy. Oh, we've already raised $10,000. We're gonna just throw that away? Let's raise another 10. It's like,
that's not the sunk cost fallacy, you doofus. Okay, that's not, you know, throwing good money after bad like you do in the casino. You know, giving it to the one-armed bandit. The one-armed bandit isn't going to offer you like legal absolution in your freedom of movement. That is a false equivalence. Very many does he make. And he's trying to use like just mouthing the term of a logical fallacy as like some concrete evidence. Like, sorry, psychology fucking first year mistake. You improperly used it. You don't know what you're talking about, buddy.
I got to be honest. If you have a channel, if your channel and your audience and your subscribers and your watchers and your support is so small that you can't get the support you need, all I'm saying is it's worth thinking.
So there, he's basically saying, and that's what I said before, but before I stopped reading my notes, he put a popularity measure and a market viability measure on whether or not you could, like, I don't responsibly protest because of like any legal stuff that would come your way, right? So, yeah, no, don't worry. There is nothing for you. You are out in the cold. And not only that, like, if you're not the prettiest freaking flower of the bunch and you're taking down all of this attention, then, I mean, geez, there's nothing for you. And maybe you should never have stepped onto the street in the first place. Again, an artificial, arbitrary, higher barrier for entry for protesters, which will only serve to limit the number of people who are willing to come out. What are you doing? Again, like, how many people have you scared off the street already, Aaron, from Chicago to here to LA, right? Who, like, you know, it's not just you, but it's like all of the people that blindly follow you as a group and take direct orders from you as to what to do that week has made it so much less inviting and so much harder to do anything. And for what? Because some of us raised some questions, and you went on a witch hunt with somebody who is one of the best of us, who pushed the LA protest further than I believed possible. When I showed up, the first Viper Room show in LA, and it was after my first trip to LA, which concluded, or near the end, Easter was the first cookout day, which moved to expanding the cookout, which moved to LRH Boulevard, which scared the shit out of them. Sean Angelina on site trying everything, right? And then the occupation, which, like, you know, a music festival that's like not as well planned and, you know, kind of underfunded. Yeah, you had some fucking problems, right? Which could be addressed if, like, you know, without all the confugality. But basically, you know, you needed more people and you needed more organization. Like the fixes for that aren't complicated. They're not. So, but after that, Scientology still, like, the planners willing to go so far, like that was effective enough that they like put semi-permanent things onto the sidewalk, cracking sidewalk and street, like damaging city property. That they were put in a desperate situation where Scientology was acting out in a way that was exposing their use of public funds, of public resources, of the public permitting system, of everything connected with that. And has yet to show all of what that is. Like, Henri's still working, people are still working on these ideas. There was a lot that was generated. It wasn't all a wash. Although we'd like to make it seem like that. Again, throwing away that level of contribution because somebody had what to me is a completely understandable and predictable mental health event, like an acute episode, and just like dehumanizing somebody in that position. Like, okay, you know, you want to get them help, you know, maybe they're going to make some mistakes and they're going to do some damage. That's up to them to repair, but that doesn't mean you burn them all the way down. If you're bigoted against somebody that's having a mental health episode, yeah, I guess that's what you're going to do. You don't even see them as a person anymore. Why are you acting like that? I'm going to burn you all the way down. That's what I saw this community, led by Aaron Smith Levin, do to DOA, to the point where he was having his life threatened. Man.
Thinking about this particular example of, is it really worth $20,000?
Let's do this again.
I think it's worth asking ourselves as members or supporters of this movement or this community. Is it worth $20,000 of our collective money to allow one protester with almost no subscribers to continue protesting outside of one building where there are already hundreds of other protesters? I mean,
my money.
At the risk of sounding callous and insensitive, I don't know that the evidence shows that it is. I think it's worth asking.
Yeah, no, you risked, and
it would have cost $1,000 just to settle the whole issue and sort of not, you know, like to admit to the thing you are being accused of would have just cost $1,000. So now we're going to raise $20,000 just so you can keep protesting outside of one organization. I don't know that that makes sense. And it's one of these things of like the sunk cost fallacy. Oh, we've already raised $10,000. We're going to just.
No, idiot. If they can chase you off with a fake TRO at that location, what makes you think they can't do it again somewhere else? And so, you know, you just get painted further into a tighter and tighter corner of where you can go. If you allow it to happen here, it will happen again. It will happen to more people. You don't understand, or maybe you do. Maybe you do. Maybe it's the worst, and you do understand that would mess up everything. That would set a precedent by which the protesters going to roll over, take a plea for $1,000 because it's inconvenient for your fundraising efforts. So that
throw that away. Let's raise another 10. It's like, I got to be honest. If you have a channel, if your channel and your audience and your subscribers and your watchers and your support is so small that you can't get the support you need All I'm saying is it's worth thinking about this particular example of, is it really worth $20,000 of our viewers' money to allow one protester to continue protesting outside of one building?
Like, we don't have to allow this. We can shut it down. How could we, other people allowing other people to not speak out or allowing somebody else to talk smack about 86 GOP. Who is allowing this stuff, and how is, with these allowances, how is somebody who's making such statements not seen as a gatekeeper? Jesus.
Why? Why is that a good use of money?
To defend ourselves, to defend our freedom of movement, to defend the future idea of the freedom of movement and protesters in each and every municipality. Because if you can let this happen to Scientology, anybody else, and they do try this stuff, right? Just about any other protester for any other movement, you're going to catch one of these after a time, right? And the very idea that anybody would just roll, or that's like the safe bet, or a better use of funds, again, shows a profound ignorance of what protest is. And it's just like he doesn't care. Oh, wow. It's like he doesn't care. So, all right. Thank you for all the clips, Dr. Who, Heather. That was miraculous. Oh, man, I couldn't. It was really great. So I've got a bunch of starred stuff. I'm going to go through it, and then I'm going to head out. Yeah, Minion. How can he think the protesters should just take a deal? And doesn't he see that it's important to get these cases on the record? Obviously, he doesn't. He'd rather get these things out of his hair. Take your $1,000. That's really cool uplighting. Wow, that's almost like 3D glasses. But no, he doesn't. Obviously, and in that he doesn't understand what some of us are here for, which is to actually do this work. It's not just making cutesy videos about P. Diddy on YouTube. My accounts were blocked today when I asked about the EIN and why I was making 86 look good after threatening to. I saw that go down, Stony Baloney Minion 710. I saw that boop, got bleeped right out of existence. It seemed like just a basic question. If somebody were maybe, I don't know, strong and upstanding, they'd be able to withstand that kind of interrogation. In the lightest sense of that word, which would, in an interrogative. Thank you for doing that. Everybody keep asking questions. I mean, it might be expensive, but I think the airing of these things is necessary. Appreciate mindful, articulate way of recapping all of this. Oh, thanks. I'm not sure. I have no idea. I think this has been a pretty blind run. I was kind of scared out of my bejesus before doing this. Leland Hodges. Well, I support all the protesters, but most of all, you, Selfless DOA, and Awesome Pearl Snappy. Well, thank you very much, Leland. And it's important. Like, even people that I have disagreements with, and like when there was this kind of initial division over, a bunch of, to my mind, some legitimate fracases that happened between protesters, I still, any legit work that was happening on the street, I want to support, because it's all furthering the same end. And maybe I don't agree with the methods, but if I can see the utility in any part of what they're doing, I want to support it. What he's been doing to Liz is absolutely despicable. I have tremendous respect for her keeping her grace and holding it all in for so long. Absolutely. This person, let's see, I'm glad I was able to see her show last night. Me too. I've heard a lot of tough stories about people's lives. I haven't lived the toughest story. I have difficulty in here. I have some nasty knocks, but Liz's spirit in showing up for us so often to deliver the goods, to deliver the message, to support so many of us, to, what she does every day for the people around her, for the people, you know, for her friends, her family, her dedication to her family and her work. Such strong character, such an upstanding human being that is an inspiration to me of how to walk in the world after going through the absolute fire, and how to live in your truth. Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting what he's been doing. Let's see, late to the live, but I just wanted to say, if you come to Chicago again and need some support, let me know. I'll come out and stand with you, but I don't risk a lot, but I support when I can. Thank you very much. Indigo's Inside Scientology. Yeah, nice. Yeah, that sounds great. It would be great to, you know, get back on the road again at some point, you know, clear the air on my own case, and to feel like a bit more freedom of movement. You know, I don't want to stack up things upon things, or, you know, other things that are that can be used against me. So let's see. Wonder how many words Aaron will need to clear in this live. A few, maybe one or two. I'm not sure. I'm sure he's heard unconscionable before from a bunch of people directing criticism at him, but you know, maybe you can get into that one. Let's see. As a child, I used the children's helpline. If no one has answered that phone, I'm not sure what I would have done. But that call helped so much in that moment. Absolutely. That's how, I mean, what I know of these lines and of these services that are effective, and I know that that these organizations have to very carefully design the messaging, design the outreach, like what the material looks like, you know, the bills or the ad, or, you know, the spokesperson that's giving it out, down to like the color choices and the tone of voice, to make everything seem as inviting as possible to the particular population that you're trying to reach. So the fact that he like would basically negate or just not engage with anything like that, again, shows his complete lack of seriousness. So, oh, this will be interesting. Let's see. Selfless. Even though Denver J did the same accusations towards DOA as Aaron, today DOA said he would like to have Jay back. That's a good guy. Yeah. You know, I was a huge Jay fan. You know, for whatever happened between us, I still see so much of his protest as so effective. What the work that he did in Denver, and the very much of the work that he did in Los Angeles. So when we had differences, it was hard for me. I took it very hard. And just being able to recognize each other's utility in this, even though we have differences of opinion, or maybe we've had dust-ups or whatever, that you're right. It shows like a mature person that's able to let bygones be bygones for the benefit of all of us. So, and to be more inviting, and put the swords down and stop swinging. So yeah, agreed. Thank you for that. Chiarzona. I don't think Aaron expected to question his motives and integrity. I think he was used to be able to control the narrative any way he wanted it. Well, that's agreed. That's the way he acts to me. This is somebody that's not used to being out of control and is quite a little bit flummoxed and perplexed that anybody would ask any questions like this, and it's as though, you know, we're some grotesque coming out of the dark, and we're saying, well, we would like to donate this money that we raised. How come the EIN, the EIN number isn't working? Because we're sitting on this money. We're really trying to do the best thing, and kind of getting spit in the face. So kind of, yeah. So, hey, Taylor, thank you. Well, super chat, $10, thank you. Yeah. Wow. Let's see. The protesters have built an amazing, diverse community. We have a doctor, engineer, professional bull baiter, rock star, great researcher, activist, passion, and the chat. The chat has your back. Thank you very much, Kay Taylor. That that is it's also humorous. I needed that. Yeah. Professional bull baiter. It's funny. So yeah, good one. Let's see. DOA. Yeah, he's causing division. He has been causing division. Who has the opportunity? Who has the largesse? Who has, the biggest ding darn megaphone around all of us, who can get this stuff out? And that's power, and with that comes responsibility. If you don't take responsibility for that, you don't get any respect. So that's what I'm lacking right now, I think. Oh, never a Nana. Thank you too. That's very kind. All right. Serge Del Mar. True accountability means facing the harm you've caused and standing up to make it right, not hiding behind excuses. Absolutely. Problems that I've had interpersonally with different people, friends or family, the way that you can work back to trust that I've ever been able to see is by, the honest acknowledgement of any and all harm and taking full responsibility, exposing yourself to full accountability for it and standing in that space. So it shows that you're willing to recognize and you're willing to learn from your mistakes. You're willing to recognize your mistakes, willing to learn, grow, move on, for the purpose of maybe, I don't know, preserving any kind of relationship or respect that you may have between people. Thank you very much. Very good point. Let's see. I feel it. I don't know. Let's see. Right, Christy. Many go out consistently with little acknowledgement or appraisal. Absolutely. So his comments about, okay, so, you need to be this big and, you need to have this amount of support or you can't really do it. And so, he goes on to talk about what he sees as, what that means. And it's a limited few protesters that have really specific approaches. And again, not everybody can be these people. And so again, you're massively limiting the potential pool from which you're going to get anybody hitting the street and resisting Scientology's progress from being physically present on the street to make sure that the body routers are on the street, grabbing at college students and taking them in to their sick and disgusted, evil, twisted human trafficking cult. Dreamscape. Protesters are not a monochromatic landscape. Yes, we are not. It's a beautiful mosaic where every protester is different but adds to the colorful, beautiful picture. Now, that's what I found. That's what I really loved about it. We're ragtag. We're all really different. It was like the Muppets. And I felt I could hear the rainbow connection in the background for most of the beginning. And I tried to concentrate on that. You're absolutely right. We're not a monolith. We're not monochromatic. We're not featureless. We're all different. And we need, to be able to grow this thing, we need to be more inclusive and try to work towards ways of being more accepting and trying to keep more people healthy enough to want to stay in. So, Serge. Fun. Who the F thought it was for fun? You think is getting raped as kids have fun? How tone deaf can you be? None of this. Okay? Now, this goes to people dodging a certain portion of the abuses of Scientology, not wanting to address it in certain ways and certain words and certain tones about certain people because it's just too uncomfortable. And you know what else? The algorithm doesn't drive it when you talk about these complex issues. If you say the word, so we've been all forced to use these euphemisms. And now some of us would rather nobody talk about it at all because you don't make the ad revenue, which he goes on to say that's where it's at. Like if you can get it going on the ad revenue, they don't want that stuff talked about. So if you're talking about child abuse and you want your ad revenue, the two aren't going to jive. So Aaron's basically in that go for the ad revenue. He's like, don't talk about the kids. It's not fun. Thank you, Serge. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for shining a light where these people get lost, exactly where they get lost and how they get lost. I feel like you have a really clear through line in awareness to how that happens, the methodologies by which it happens, and where they're still existing, even if with people who aren't practicing Scientology anymore. Thank you so much. So Indigo's Insight Scientology, yeah. Let's see. I don't look at Serge nor Liz Laura as entertainment. My heart breaks for the pain they've been through, and the human story is why I joined this fight. Same here. So many people, so many other of us on the street that I've met are there because they know what it is to be mishandled by people who you trust as a kid or otherwise, have been abused at the hands of somebody or other. Knows what it's like to be mishandled by the world, to be completely misunderstood or alienated. A lot of us have our own damage. It's not the same damage. I'm not comparing the one to the other. Most of what I've heard from Scientology, I mean, I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. And it's not entertainment. I mean, damn, the music is, but it still has like a real hearty, nourishing meat and potatoes message about what all of this is. And that's what good arts and entertainment is. It informs and feeds the mind, gives these impressions, is communicating from the mind of somebody that's experienced something from a position in life that you haven't seen. And speaking of which, Laura, literally, with all that, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Okay, so Danny. The reason why I told him I was firing the lawyer was because of the way he worked. Yeah, I could have gotten a different lawyer in the same firm, but I didn't want to be associated with 86 GOP at that. Agreed, of course. Better to move on if you can. You got burned. I wouldn't expect you to go back and touch that hot stove again. And I think the idea that anybody would expect you to is ludicrous. So, and especially in these kinds of states, when you're fighting for your freedom and the ground is shifting under your feet like the sands, yeah, you can't tolerate things like that. Shifts like that, misuses of your trust and your time in a legal defense. I think you did exactly the right thing. So, thank you for your openness and transparency. Selfless. No more kids in Scientology. Kids can't consent. They absolutely cannot. Not a problem. And I'm only sorry that it took this long and something as idiotic and hurtful and spiteful as Aaron's live today to kind of activate me from my position. But as I said before, I had a little bit of like an emotional, very difficult time after receiving my own order. So it's been rough, but this feels more like me. I recognize more of myself in this, so this is really good. And thank you to Serge, thank you to Pearl, thank you to Liz for going first, for going strong, and for showing the way, and showing the necessity and the utility in this. It took me a little bit longer, but thank you. Yes, F Sciento, F douchebag, thumb faces, and gaslighting. Davies, nice and Sharts for the win. I mean, for one of the wins, but you definitely won over my my laughs right there. Holy Moses, that. Yes, oh yes, and I'm not sure what this is in, reference to, but that's. I mean, is that a band? Not sure. Somebody could say. Let's see. Same person that made the pitch for the profitability of Scientology protesting. Absolutely. I don't know, maybe you'll remember this famous pitch. Oh, you too, you can make your way in Scientology protesting. Sign up now. It's basically a way for a select few people to be able to, like every great aggregator of media, skim the cream and make the most money than any one operator else. So to dominate the space, which they did effectively. Renee KC, selfless self, you should take over the protesters' daily recap show, unless we know it will be honest and fair. Great reaction show for his live tonight. Thanks. Thank you very much. It's an interesting idea.
I agree about the recap. Thank you.
Interesting idea. I never thought of anything like that, but I'll take that into consideration. That really is something. Thank you for the vote of confidence. What I found in the recaps, so I understand that some people are very poor self-promoters, and it would be difficult for them to find the confidence to go to Natalie and be like, oh, but me too, amongst all these people. They might not even think of themselves as important enough to do it. And a system like that might support people who are the better self-promoters and leave a lot of people in the dust. I found that just structurally might lead to that. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Super Pup. Thank you, Selfless Self DOA, Laura FM, Pearl Snappy, Danny, Nance Drew, for all you do. Appreciate you and your voices. Thank you. Absolutely. I mean, for whatever amount of time passes, and for whatever, thank you, Super Pup Erica, $5.99. Thank you. For whatever amount of time transpires, the people that I've shared space with on the street and in protest against Scientology, I mean, you all hold a special place in my heart. All of you. For your willingness to make any sacrifice of your time or to put yourself at risk for 1 hour of any one day to go out there and stand in front of one of those buildings, knowing the potential backlash that could be coming from this billions of dollar piece of shit human trafficking call, who has a proven track record of trying to destroy people who are doing exactly what that is. So for what, you're all brave. You're all what we need more of in the world. People that are willing to go out there and do something, not just talk about it, not just I don't know, get a bunch of praise for it, but willing to do the hard stuff and to have the hard conversations. Again, this is not everybody, but not everybody needs to do any of this stuff ever. But the people that have and that I've stood with, you all, special place in my heart. Thank you so much. I'm sorry with any of you that I've had any difficulty with. I very much hope for the reconciliation to come soon. So, all right. When you put money over humans, you're wrong every time. Absolutely, Holly Lewis. It reminds me of the Martin Luther King quote, and I'm going to butcher this. When a society spends more on weapons of war than on programs of social uplift, it is approaching spiritual death. And that's what this is to me. This is somebody who is exposing themselves as not having the requisite spirit to be able to withstand the weather of what just always comes from these movements. And if it's not easy initialized casualization, well, then he doesn't want anything to do with it. Well, I guess he can have that portion. I'm not going to be asking after people that aren't into this for the intrinsic value of bringing down the cult and not to just make a very successful YouTube channel. Thank you, Holly Lewis. Search Del Mar. A heartfelt thank you to all the child advocates who truly understand the assignment, fighting tirelessly to protect and give a voice to the most vulnerable. Your unwavering dedication and courage. Yeah, it's well, if you look at, and I've said this on lives before, if you look at who has the potential to be harmed the most for the longest in their lifetime, who has the potential to have their lives completely destroyed, to have their brains form around these limited ideas, and to be trained to have not the full range of emotions, doing permanent structural damage to brains. If that isn't the most harm, if that can't be identified, like, I'm sorry, we're fooling ourselves and we don't have our priorities straight. When there's limited resources in a emergent, terrible catastrophe where there are a bunch of injured people, what do you got to do? You got to triage, right? Who most harm? Who's the best candidates for saving as well? Kids, right? Okay. So they have their whole life. They haven't been inculcated with this up through their 30s. They haven't had yet their entire brain formed around this stuff. Best chance of freaking saving them and having them lead a normal life. So to me, it's been clear that should be our first priority. Thank you so much, Serge Delmar, for lighting this fire for us. Showing the way. Rebel. Hey, Selfless Self, you're amazing. Pearl Snappy, I'm sure. She's pro Snappy now. Yeah. She's elevated beyond pearls to pro pearls. But we know what you mean. Thank you very much, Rebel. Awesome. Haggis Basher. Selfless Self, you're fucking incredible. You and Pearl were meant to meet. I mean, of like the weird wash and tumult of this world and the possibilities of us, ending up in the same place, and I mean, hitting it off immediately. Yeah, it's like being struck by lightning. I don't know about meanings or but it's certainly serendipitous. It's one of the best things that's happened in my life. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Let's see. The Holy Rogue. Selfless Self, you did an amazing job here. Thank you so much for airing out to this degree. Yeah. I've been saving this up. It's been a long time coming. I've seen a lot of people get punched under the table, and then these people go running to their audiences to try to, sure story their way out of this and to poison the well and do all of these things that serial abusers do with the information about their abuse. It's like engage in the same tactics that you would that, any of these organizations that are trying to squash people might engage in. So, while watching this, I decided, I launched out of my chair and I said, I'm scheduling it now. There can't be any waiting for this. This is now terribly necessary. It's been necessary for a while, and so yeah, I mean, I am somewhat like, oh geez, it took this long, but it did. So thanks. GG to 3, Selfless Self. Thank you for everyone you do. That could be taken wrong, certainly. But maybe everything. Thanks, GG, for 3. I think I grabbed the sentiment of that, but somewhat suggestive. Let's see. Lily, Selfless Self's ability to stay calm and logical throughout all of this nonsense is incredible. Well, to a degree, I guess. I don't see myself as either of those things most of the time, but thank you for that. Maybe ask Pearl how calm and logical I am all the time. Let's see. This was awesome, Selfless. Thank you. I'm glad you found it in any way good. This is my perspective again. Do what you want watching Aaron or any of these other people. You're not any less of a person in my eyes for doing any of that. This is my point of view and what I've seen about this person. I don't know. Yeah, I've made that clear before, I guess. Thank you for all the awesomeness. Oh, Jules Tully. That's Jules. Jules. I like that. Yeah, it's a good exercise for the face. I'm amazing. Thanks for speaking up. Wow, this is selfless self. Thank you for all you have done and continue to do. I hope you and Pearl are released from your legal issues very soon. Music is powerful. Hey, more to come on that. I think I'm just about set up here to be able to live stream some music, and I think that's what I'm going to be doing some of, including I'm going to see what I'm cleared to do by my lawyer, if there's anything that I can do without kind of messing with my case out here. But I'm going to be offering some more music soon. Thank you. Heather in the library. Well said. We need another selfless drum jam. Oh wow! So, like you called it. That's what I was just talking about, and you very well soon be in receipt of something like that. So let's selfless self is always Moon Taxi. I dig the name. Thank you very much. Oh, thanks for saying I'm amazing. Selfless self. Miss meeting you out there. Oh right, no, totally. Goddamn. Miss meeting you out there too. Can't wait till you and Pearl are able to get back out there together. Me too. And I mean, it would be great to tool around with Pearl doing protests around the place. It's just finding something to do with the dogs. Let's see. This is a great live. Thanks for doing this, Selfless. You're entirely welcome, April. Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Selfless, what more do you need? How can we help you? How can we help Pearl Snap HNL art? If we need anything further from the community, we'll definitely put out the word. Thank you for offering that. It's good to know that we have these offerings of support. It definitely lets us know that there are people still watching, and it seems like we have things in hand. And I'm still trying to figure out which direction to go to after kind of having the wind taken out of my sails. So thank you very much for that. Let's see. XRP Army GA Yoda. Zerp Army Guy Yoda. Or is that Georgia Yoda? Let's see. You are all heroes, and you are making the world a better place. Much love. Thanks for saying that. And wow, y'all. Wow, y'all. Thank you so much for being here and for showing some support for these ideas. I mean, I'm disappointed, and in a lot of ways, I'm angry at Aaron Smith Levin for, as I described, I think his lack of accountability, his lack of taking responsibility for his influence on very many events within this community over time. His not being clear about the goals and the offerings of the foundation for threatening people on lives and behind the scenes and many other things. I think he's still a flawed human being that is completely able to change very many of these things. Like there's the possibility of redemption is strong. He's not beyond change, but with all of these things, that he said, with all of these attacks, with all of this underhandedness, and attacking some of the most vulnerable in our community at very vulnerable times, I don't believe it should pass without comment. And so part of what I wanted to do here was to try to model doing that. I don't know that I did it at all well. This is how I knew how to do it within the few hours that I kind of dreamed this up. And rather than having commentary where we tear each other all the way down, just comment on the things that you really have issue with and try to dig into those things without trying to remove the other person of your humanity. Because when you're doing that, you're actually doing it to yourself. Okay? When you're not regarding like the shared humanity, if it's not namaste, if it's not regarding like the eternal spark or the Buddha spirit or however you want to describe it in each other, when you lose sight of that, you've lost the plot. And to me, Aaron's lost the plot. And having done that and being kind of some kind of a figurehead for this is very, very dangerous. So that's why I wanted to come out here and say everything that I did. And thank you all for staying with me for as long as this went. It's about 2.5 hours. This has been really active. I can't tell you what the support means. For me, I felt pretty isolated and lost up until this point. This has been bolstering. However hard all of this is and these ideas might be, thank you all for sticking in. And with that, going to end this. Love to you all. Be good out there. Support to all the protesters. I hope to see you soon. Be good.